Is a civil war possible in the USA? Now, there's a thought that gives pause. We're not talking about a Hollywood blockbuster, but the real, gritty, heart-wrenching reality. It's a question that's not only provocative but deeply relevant in our current political climate. We're living in a time of heightened tensions, polarized ideologies, and deep-rooted division. But does this necessarily spell out civil war? This video will explore the possibility of a civil war in the USA. Buckle up, it's time to dive deep into this contentious topic. To understand the current political divide, we must first look back at history. Let's rewind the clock to the 1860s. The United States of America was a young nation, barely a century old. The country was embroiled in a bitter conflict known as the Civil War, a war that was fought on American soil, pitting brother against brother, state against state. The primary catalyst for this war was slavery. The southern states, reliant on an agrarian economy, deeply entrenched in the institution of slavery, were at loggerheads with the northern states, which were rapidly industrializing and largely opposed to the expansion of slavery. This stark contrast in economic structures and moral compasses created a chasm so deep that it led to the deadliest war in American history, resulting in over 600,000 casualties. Now let's juxtapose this with the current political climate. Today, the United States is a mature nation, a global superpower, yet the country seems more divided than ever. The issues fueling the divide are different, but the intensity is eerily similar. We see stark differences in ideologies, with debates around immigration, gun control, and climate change causing deep rifts. The country is split along geographical lines, with urban and rural areas often holding diametrically opposed views. The political discourse has become increasingly vitriolic, with compromise seeming like a distant memory. Social media and cable news have amplified these divisions, creating echo chambers that reinforce and intensify existing beliefs. This intense polarization, much like in the 1860s, threatens to tear at the fabric of the nation. However, it's important to remember that the Civil War was not just about political differences, it was about a fundamental disagreement over human rights and the very definition of freedom. Today's issues, while significant, do not have the same moral weight. While the circumstances are different, the polarization is eerily similar. It's a reminder that history often rhymes, if not repeats. As we navigate these turbulent times, it's crucial to learn from the past, to strive for unity amidst diversity, and to remember that a house divided against itself cannot stand. The political divide did not happen overnight, it has been brewing for decades. Let's embark on a journey back in time, the late 1960s and early 70s, a period of profound change and conflict. The Vietnam War, civil rights movements, and the Watergate scandal ignited the flame of division, setting the stage for the political landscape we see today. Fast forward to the 80s, under the Reagan administration. The seeds of partisanship grew with the introduction of policies like trickle-down economics, which increased the wealth gap and further polarized the nation. Then the 90s brought the impeachment of President Bill Clinton, an event that intensified partisan lines. The divide deepened as the country split over the interpretation of the law and morality in politics. In the early part of the new millennium, the response to the 9/11 attacks and the ensuing war on terror further polarized the nation. The policies of the Bush administration drew lines in the sand over issues like national security and individual privacy. And let's not forget the Obama years. Despite his message of unity, the nation seemed more divided than ever. The Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, was a lightning rod for controversy, inciting passionate debates about the role of government in healthcare. The Trump era then took the stage, characterized by a level of division not seen in recent memory. Issues such as immigration, climate change, and impeachment proceedings against the president further fueled the fire of division. And here we are in the 20s, living in an era of unprecedented polarization. The handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, racial tensions, and the contentious 2020 election have only served to widen the chasm between political parties. In essence, these decades of division are not merely a series of isolated events. Instead, they represent a continuous thread of political discord, each event contributing to the deepening divide. These events have contributed to the stark political divide we see today. The political division in the USA is more than just a disagreement on policies. Today we find ourselves in an era of extreme polarization, where the gulf between left and right, Democrat and Republican, seems wider than ever before. This division is not merely a matter of differing opinions on tax rates or healthcare reform, it's a deep-seated animosity, a fundamental disagreement on what America should be and the values it should represent. This hostility is further exacerbated by the echo chambers of social media and various news outlets. These platforms designed to connect us have instead become arenas for political warfare. Algorithms that feed us more of what we like and agree with have created ideological silos, making it easier than ever to avoid opposing viewpoints and reinforcing our pre-existing beliefs. It's not only about confirming our biases either. These platforms also amplify the most extreme voices, the ones that scream the loudest and push the most provocative narratives. This inflames passions, stokes fears, and drives us further apart. Moreover, the lack of compromise in our political discourse is alarming. It's as if the very idea of finding common ground has become anathema. The us versus them mentality has seeped into the fabric of our society, affecting friendships, family relationships, and even our workplaces. The consequences of this division are far-reaching. It's not just about who wins the next election or which party controls Congress. It's about the erosion of trust in our institutions, the fraying of our social fabric, and the rise of a culture where winning is everything, and the ends always justify the means. This isn't just about partisan politics anymore. It's about the kind of society we want to live in, the kind of future we want for our children. It's about whether we can still find a way to disagree without being disagreeable, to argue without animosity, and to see those on the other side of the political aisle not as enemies, but as fellow Americans with different perspectives. The division is deep and widespread, affecting every aspect of American life. Given the deep political division, is a civil war possible in the USA? It's a question that's been raised, debated, and puzzled over by many. Let's delve into the factors that could potentially lead to such a scenario, and the elements that could prevent it. When we talk about the possibility of a civil war, we must consider the fuel that could ignite such a conflict. To start, we have a deep and increasing political divide, where the middle ground seems to be shrinking. This divide is not just about differing political ideologies, but also about fundamentally different views on what the country should be. Moreover, the rise of misinformation and the echo chambers created by social media have exacerbated these divisions, making compromise and understanding increasingly difficult. In such a scenario, it's not hard to imagine that escalating tensions could, in theory, lead to a civil war. But let's not forget the factors that could prevent such a catastrophic event. One of the most significant is the presence of strong democratic institutions. The USA's checks and balances, its judiciary, its free press, and its active civil society are all bulwarks against a descent into civil war. Another critical factor is the military's role. Unlike in many countries where civil wars have occurred, the US military is subordinate to civilian control, reducing the risk of a military coup that could trigger a civil conflict. Lastly, we should consider the economic implications. A civil war would be devastating for the American economy and the world's economy. This factor alone serves as a powerful deterrent. Expert opinions on the matter are diverse. While some suggest that the possibility of a civil war is real, albeit distant, others firmly believe that the safeguards in place in the American system make such a scenario highly unlikely. In conclusion, while we cannot dismiss the possibility of a civil war given the current political climate, it is not a certainty. It's a complex issue with many variables at play. While the possibility exists, it is not a foregone conclusion. The political division in the USA is a serious issue that needs to be addressed. We've journeyed through history, traced the timeline of political division, examined the current state of affairs, and considered the chilling possibility of a civil war. Our country has seen divisions before, but we've also seen unity. We've witnessed the power of dialogue, compromise, and respect for diversity. The question isn't whether civil war is possible. Rather, the question is, what can we do to prevent our differences from escalating into such a catastrophic event? It begins with understanding. Understanding that our fellow citizens may hold different views, but that doesn't make them our enemies. It continues with communication, open and respectful, where we listen more than we speak. It progresses with education, where we learn about the complexities of our political system and the value of compromise. But perhaps most importantly, it culminates in action. Each one of us in small ways and big can contribute to bridging this divide. We can vote, engage in peaceful protests, participate in community dialogues, and hold our elected officials accountable. We can challenge hate speech, misinformation, and discrimination. We can strive for empathy, understanding, and respect in our daily interactions. Remember, Each step we take towards unity, no matter how small, is a step away from division and potential conflict. The future of the USA depends on our ability to come together and find common ground.